This meeting is being recorded.
Hey, Bereans. Let's look at another trivia, a 5 minutes chat on the word become, to be, to become. These are found in, the beginning is found in Genesis 10:8, and the research shows us that lihyot is to be, become, to become, is found 5 verses in Genesis, which fits nicely into our 5 minutes plan. So instead of looking at the 73 occurrence, we are just looking at 5. And so let's take a look at the first occurrence, which is in Genesis chapter 10, verse 8. And this is about Nimrod. I've always been fascinated about this person, Nimrod, who it says here in verse 8, now Cush fathered Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. The word he began to be a mighty one on the earth is the one that we are looking at. So where do you see Nimrod in this chart? Is the curse line, which is the Ham line. Now, all of the 3 out of the 4 sons are all enemy kingdom. The Canaanites, Egyptians, the Chaldeans, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, and Nimrod is in charge of the Ur of the Chaldees, the Assyrians, and the Babylonian Empire. And he became a demigod, almost challenging God. And he united everyone and built the Tower of Babel. Now, I would have thought the righteous line would have stayed away from this kind of a person and still maintain the righteous line. But it's not very clear. This is what I feel. So when Abram was called out of the Ur of Chaldees at age 70, he was in Nimrod's territory. Can you imagine that? So God had to call him out of there to get his journey started to a place where he will take him. So that whole Terah, Abram thing pulled out of Nimrod's camps or cities and started traveling. Now, this is what happened there. I've taken the non-biblical source as well from here, simply because sometimes to get to the bottom of some of these things, we need to be very clear and we need to look at many sources. Sometimes the Bible doesn't tell us the historical clarity of these things. So we have taken that source to help us look at it. So now we are going to look at what happened to Abraham as he started out in the journey and where did he end in that journey. So as he started out at 70, he came to the closer to the, at age 99, to receiving the full covenant, which includes the promised seed, which will come from his loins, is Isaac. Now, this seed is promised in this account here. And we see the chapter 17 verse 7 says, I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim to you and to your descendants after you. So the to be again is here, stating to Abraham that he is who God will be Elohim to. And that is very important as we see that. Now, at 99, Abraham is going to have a child with his wife who is 89. Remember, she was very beautiful. King Abimelech wanted her at 89, but God stopped it because the promised seed was to become immediately after that. So here in the tent, you notice Sarah laughed, will I be having pleasure with my husband at 89? Because it states there in chapter 18 of verse 11, now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in days, but for the woman, the custom of woman had ceased to be as to Sarah. So certainly it's a miracle of God that she gave birth at 90. So obviously God had his plan and he worked it out, and Isaac was born. Now, we move forward and we come to Jacob's life. Jacob, who became Israel, has got all his children. But here we see the daughter going to visit Shechem. and the places around his territory. And when Shechem saw her, he desired her. And in Genesis 3:42, Shechem is negotiating with the whole village, the whole community, that they should be one with the Israelites. So this is how he went about negotiating it in verse 22. Only on this condition shall the man consent to us, to live with us, to become one people, and every male among us be circumcised as they are circumcised. So they went about getting themselves circumcised, and we know the story of Simeon and Levi, who came in during the worst of the time of pain in the third day and killed them all the male, and plundered the whole place, taking the female and the children as slaves. So this is what happened in this account. Then finally, the same word is also used with Potiphar's wife. Now this is the account of Joseph. Now Joseph was in charge of everything in the Potiphar's household because God showed him favor, except for the wife and whatever Potiphar ate as food. Now it says in chapter 39 verse 10, it came to pass as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he did not listen to her, to lie beside her, to be with her. That's the word, to be, or to be with her. So this is the stress that we have from the word that we are looking at in all of these 5 different verses. Now remember, Joseph was a young man. He was between 70 to 20, and he was fully human and fully male. So her haunting him for 3 years must be such a challenge for him. But we see that he did not lie with her. That's how it ends. Thank you for listening on today. It was good to see this verse to discuss. Stop share.